U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has visited Pope Leo in Rome. The meeting follows a public spat between the Pope and U.S. President Trump over the war in Iran. Rubio's trip is widely seen or viewed as an effort to bridge that divide.
The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio puts his best diplomatic foot forward as he seeks to reset Washington's relationship with the pontiff. It follows a torrid period of criticism between President Trump and the first American Pope, principally over the U.S.'s war with Iran.
I basically said that the message of the church, my message, the message of the gospel, blessed are the peacemakers. I do not look at my role as being political or politician. I don't want to get into a debate with him. I don't think that the message of the gospel is meant to be abused in the way that some people are doing.
Enough of the idolatry of self and money. Enough of the display of power. Enough of war.
In recent months, the president has conducted prayer meetings in the Oval Office with himself at the center, called the Pope weak on crime on social media, and hit out at the pontiff while speaking to the press.
He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Later that same evening, the president posted this picture of himself, widely interpreted as depicting himself as Jesus. Trump denied this accusation and instead said he was supposed to be a doctor before going on to, once again, attack Pope Leo.
No, I don't, because Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result. You have hundreds of millions of people dead.
The U.S. ambassador to the Holy See described the conversation between the Pope and Rubio as frank. But whether relations can truly be reset now largely rests with the president, and if he can refrain from his critical outbursts and late-night posts depicting himself as the Almighty.
And joining me now is David Gibson. He's director of the Center on Religion and Culture at Fordham University. He is one of America's leading observers of religion and politics. Mr. Gibson, it's good to have you with us. Let me just start by getting your read on this. Why is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, why is he paying a visit to the Vatican? Why is he meeting with the Pope?
It's damage control, basically. I mean, after his boss, President Trump, went on the attack, unprovoked attack against Pope Leo with his comments, it's been downhill for relations between the U.S. and the Vatican. And, you know, why Donald Trump would do something like this, no one can answer. You'd need a psychologist to answer that. But the effects have been real and bad at a time when Donald Trump cannot afford to wage more unnecessary wars with anybody.
The Vatican says that this meeting was requested by Washington. I mean, what does that tell us about the current state of relations between the Trump administration and the Holy See?
Well, it clearly shows that the Trump administration wanted to come with an olive branch. They realized that they were not winning this fight. They were losing on even among their own base. You have to understand, you know, white Catholics are almost as supportive of Donald Trump and MAGA as white evangelicals in the United States. Mm-hmm. So losing anything that erodes that white Catholic base in the United States is politically dangerous, very dangerous for the Trump administration. So they needed to do something to reach out to the Vatican and to try and calm the waters, at least.
You know, you talk about the Catholics in the United States. Marco Rubio, he arrives not just as America's top diplomat, but he's also a practicing Catholic himself. How much does that matter in a meeting like this, do you think?
Well, it's good. That can cut both ways. The vice president, J.D. Vance, is a practicing Catholic, but he tends to hold his Catholicism so tight that he uses it to argue with the Pope. Marco Rubio is a cradle Catholic. J.D. Vance is a convert, interestingly. Marco Rubio is a cradle Catholic from originally of Cuban extraction. So I think he has a, let's say, a better visceral understanding of the Catholic culture and diplomacy and how these things work. And he's going there not to pick a fight with the Pope or to argue with the Pope. He's a diplomat. So I think he has a better understanding of it. It's interesting that in this whole past 2 weeks of Trump versus the Pope, Rubio has not weighed in. J.D. Vance has. So Rubio is the one to send.
Rubio is the one to send. Is Marco Rubio, in your opinion, is he going just as America's top diplomat, or is he going there as a politician who we know has presidential designs? Does this make him look more presidential candidate-like? I mean, is this grooming him to replace maybe Donald Trump?
Absolutely. You cannot separate this visit, or frankly, anything that's going to be happening in the next 2 and 3 years leading up to the 2028 presidential election, from the personal ambitions, who's going to succeed Donald Trump. And look, it's between two Catholics, Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Yeah. And this visit certainly furnishes Rubio's credentials with Catholic voters in the United States.
Let me go back just to the background for this meeting. The Vatican's basically Secretary of State Cardinal Pietro Parolin, effectively it's like the Holy See's top diplomat, a lot of foreign minister, if you will. He has called Trump's attacks on the Pope, and he's used the word strange. In Vatican language, how significant is that comment, the use of the word strange? I mean, it's not something that the Vatican throws around.
No, and look, the Vatican has been around for centuries. Vatican diplomacy has been around for centuries. They're very good at this. Donald Trump is such an oddity. Even the Vatican is at a loss for how to characterize this. They want to talk in standard diplomatic language. They want to speak in ways that, of international law and international norms, and a way to calm the waters and to get things done. So they're really at a loss, and they don't want to dignify what Trump is doing, that kind of rhetoric. They want to dismiss it. They want to put things on a whole different level, which Marco Rubio does. But again, you have to understand, whatever comes out of this meeting between Rubio and the Pope, Donald Trump could blow it up with a post on Truth Social 5 minutes later.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that Pope Leo is particularly well equipped, though, to deal with President Trump by the simple fact that he is also an American?
Absolutely. And there is no doubt. The one thing in Trump's initial attack a couple of weeks ago, he said, Pope Leo owes his election to me. I don't know what he meant by that. But in some ways, I was at the conclave last year, a year ago, that elected Cardinal Prevost, Chicagoan, as Pope Leo. And some of the cardinals, especially from the Southern Hemisphere, said, we want an American who can speak the same language to Trump, who can stand up to Trump. So there is a degree that the cardinals did want someone who understands America and who can speak to Americans. And with Pope Francis, the Argentine Pope, a lot of American conservatives would say, oh, he's a Latino, he doesn't understand America, and he just speaks off the cuff, he just shoots his mouth off. You can't say that about Pope Leo. Pope Leo is a very careful American who, when he speaks, says what he means.
Let me ask you before we run out of time here, if we get beyond the accusations and the maybe the personal animosity here, Pope Leo has spoken repeatedly about peace, migration, and moral responsibility. Is this becoming more than a political disagreement? I mean, is it now a deeper moral and theological clash that we see between the Pope and the president?
Yes, I think that's exactly right. And I've written a piece recently about what I call a kind of new Americanism. This isn't just about personalities. This a clash of personalities is not just about particular policies or this war. This is a larger problem that's been emerging in the American Catholic Church, where they just don't disagree with the Pope. They disrespect the Pope. They don't just dissent. They dismiss what the Pope says. And not just the Pope, what Catholic teaching is. Pope Leo is not just speaking as himself. He's representing an entire Catholic tradition and 1.4 billion Catholics around the world. American Catholics don't realize that they're just 5% of the global church. And they're kind of putting themselves over and above everyone else. And that's a real, as you say, theological problem that will last after this Rubio visit and after Donald Trump.
Mr. Gibson, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Fascinating getting your take on this. Thank you.